Hello, everybody. Thank you once again for tuning in to Sunday School Bonanza, brought to you by This Week in Mormons. We're here again for week 2, keeping it real. And once again, as I told you last week, we are rotating hosts all over the place. I'm always here, Jeff, but this week I am joined by my, how do we describe it? Home teachee and
home teacher.
Home teacher, Bill Doolittle.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Bill.
I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me, Jeff.
Oh, it's nice to have you here, Bill. Yeah, so we say that because, see, Bill, I home teach Bill and his roommates, and they home teach me and my roommates.
We're not sure that this is our Elders Quorum president is aware of this fact yet.
Clearly not.
Yeah.
But it works well because we basically just rotate each month who actually teaches a lesson.
Super convenient. Mi casa, tu casa.
It's beautiful. So, anyways, once again, Sunday School Bonanza is your 10-minute rundown of the forthcoming lesson. Lesson number 2 this time around is called All Things According to His Will. And last week we kind of talked about, the introductory lesson about the Book of Mormon, why the Book of Mormon is great and grand and wonderful, and why it's important to study it. This week we're getting right into 1 Nephi. Chapters, pretty much 1 through 7?
Yeah.
For the most part. And we're going to go through a lot of the sort of classic stories here of Nephi and his family and all that stuff. So
yeah,
my headphones are dying, so oh well. So I'm going to dive right in here. I'll give you an overview real quick. So first section, Lehi, of course, and his family leave Jerusalem, go to the wilderness. After that, Nephi and his brothers return to Jerusalem to get the plates of brass. Talk a little bit about that. And then, of course, bringing the brass plates back, and then going back again for Ishmael and his family. A lot of back and forth going on in these early chapters of the Book of Mormon.
I figure it kind of starts like I start most of my days, where you sort of leave the house, and then you realize, oh, I forgot my keys. Oh, wait, I forgot my Metro card.
We need that.
I forgot. So you have to keep coming back.
Yeah. So right here in 1 Nephi 1 and 2. Goodness, typically they're just going to... I don't even know where to start with this because so many people know the stories already, but Lehi leaves Jerusalem and takes his family into the wilderness. Why, of course? Because Lehi, what did Lehi do, Bill? Why did Lehi have to leave?
Lehi had to leave because God told him to in a vision right from the start.
Yep.
Well, and he also preached that Jerusalem was going to be destroyed, and people didn't really like that.
Yeah, people weren't too fond of that at all.
No.
But and the people did reject that. And, of course... one of the things it asks, though, is, why, even today, why do people rebel against the Lord and his servants? Even today, we see that, right?
Every day.
Every day. We rebel in different ways, obviously, but I think just as well, we're told to flee a lot of things that aren't necessarily Jerusalem, and we still fail to do so. And so Lehi bows out there. They're going to take to the country, take to the desert, really. And
hitting the spice trade route.
Yeah, pretty much. But, of course, what's the great promise that the Lord gave to Nephi if they would obey his commandments?
They would inherit a promised land. They don't know where it is yet, but
and
promised land.
We've got it right here in chapter 2, verses 19, 20, and 22. It says, "And it came to pass that the Lord spake unto me, Nephi, saying, Blessed art thou, Nephi, because of thy faith, for thou hast sought me diligently with lowliness of heart. And inasmuch as ye shall keep my commandments, ye shall prosper, and shall be led to a land of promise, yea, even a land which I prepared for you, a land which is choice above all other lands. And inasmuch as thou shalt keep my commandments, thou shalt be made a ruler and teacher over thy brethren." So I see a lot of parallels with Abraham in this sense. It's not quite the Abrahamic covenant, but I definitely see something very similar to what we read throughout the Old Testament. And so, of course, they depart into the desert. And incidentally, have you ever seen, Bill, this... blanking on what's called now, Journey of Faith. It's like a DVD put out when it was still called Farms, the Maxwell
Institute. Is this the one about the place where Ishmael's buried and all
There's a lot of stuff. It's a lot of BYU scholars
actually
going to the Middle East and trying to find evidence.
Yep.
It's actually, I thought, a pretty informative and interesting thing. And if anybody wants to view sort of the journey of Lehi and all of them from a historical perspective, it's pretty cool because even when they go to the land bountiful, they back it up because there's a little stretch of land in Oman on the coast that's like this random rainforest, so to speak, for a little area. It's really interesting. So a bit of a side note.
Where they had people who built ships. Yeah. So it made sense that they would build a ship.
Like Haggoth and Alma, my favorite chapter. All right. So they left Jerusalem. They were spared because we know later on Jerusalem was destroyed. And then after that, things pick up in the second section.
And now they're out in the desert, and then they have to go back, right? And it's sort of an interesting question. Why do they have to go back? Why does all this have to be done from a base camp in the desert? Couldn't they have kind of taken all this stuff midnight before they left, but they don't.
Yeah,
the Lord
really.
calls them to walk back, and a few days' journey each way, getting back up to Jerusalem. They kind of have to sneak back into town since they're persona non grata. So they had to go back and obtain the brass plates, and this was a record of the people. It turned out that it had a lot of the writings of the prophets and the books of Moses to tell them basically the story of the history of the earth and the history of their people. So as they start out to become a branch of Israel somewhere else, they have that complete record. So it's really important, and we get a lot of, they make 3 or 4 attempts to get the plates from Laban, who's the leader in Jerusalem that had them, and he was not disposed to let them go. So they try a couple of different ways, and then, of course, they end up with the command where Nephi walks back in following the Spirit and is commanded to kill Laban, whom he finds in a drunken stupor, which tells you 2 things. 1, sometimes it can be hard to follow the Spirit, and 2, don't drink. So he does it. They get the stuff, and then Zoram, Laban's servant, catches him and figures out that Nephi is not Laban as he had thought originally, and so they have to take Zoram out. And they ask why did they have to take Zoram with them? Jeff, what are your thoughts there? Why does Zoram get
the
to
first
go
thing
along?
that pops in my mind is just to keep the witness under your control, pretty much. There was an element of that, and I think it also helped. I mean, for the inevitable, we'll get to going back to get the daughters of Ishmael, but as part of that, I think it's better to branch out from just the sole family, so you don't have too much inbreeding going on.
Yeah, a little more diverse gene pool.
A little bit of extra blood that keeps it a little cleaner.
Not that this all isn't the same, descendants of Jacob. But,
but first and foremost, I honestly think it was just like, Zoram, you just saw me, cack that guy, and now you know I'm not him. So maybe you should come with us. It'll be better.
Maybe you just get in the car, son.
Yeah,
that's what you need to do.
Open up the white van with no windows and just drive away.
Right. Well, so they get the plates, and then it's time to walk back down. Their family's worried sick, and Jeff, what happens?
Well, they come back and everything's okay. When the family's worried sick?
When the family's worried sick.
They rejoice.
They do rejoice.
Is that what you were going for?
The mother particularly rejoices.
I think that's actually an interesting passage when you talk about how Sariah rejoiced, because it's kind of comforting that she expresses doubt.
Yeah.
That earlier on in the scriptures, that you see that even though she's following, her prophet husband Lehi, it's not even necessarily easy for her. It gets to the point when Sariah is basically saying, how much more do we have to do here? Like, how much more is the Lord going to require? And it's great to see her rejoice. And yeah, personally, I find a nice level of, not that she doubted, but it was difficult for her.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of humanizes Laman and Lemuel, because even in, as we look in the lesson, we're going to draw a contrast between Nephi, who is extremely obedient in, unsurprisingly, his telling of the story, and then Laman and Lemuel, who are not as obedient. They murmur a lot more, but given the extremities of the circumstances, it's hard not to sympathize a little with them. And in this story, you find even corroboration that even their mother, who's such a faithful spouse to the prophet, struggles in the face of this great sacrifice.
For sure. And going back to that, because I guess we kind of did that other section, but yeah, we can build there's a bit of a division here comparing Nephi with Laman and Lemuel and how they were different. And so I guess we won't read the verse citation. I'm sure you'll do this in your lesson, because this is one of those easy things for a teacher to go back and forth on. But
do we have anyone who has good handwriting that will precede this part of the lesson?
That is going to happen on Sunday. Yeah. But I like the differences here. So I'll read Nephi ones. How about you read Laman and Lemuel ones if you have them, Bill? If you don't, it's okay.
I can read them off of yours.
So we've got Nephi knew he had goodly parents.
Laman and Lemuel murmured against their father.
Nephi believed all the words spoken by his father.
Laman and Lemuel did not believe all Lehi's words.
Nephi went to the Lord for understanding.
Laman and Lemuel knew not the dealings of God.
Nephi was willing to go and do what the Lord commanded.
Laman and Lemuel complained that the Lord had asked a hard thing.
Nephi refused to return without records.
Laman and Lemuel wanted to give up after one try.
And Nephi knew that the Lord was mightier than Laban.
Laman and Lemuel doubted that the Lord could deliver Laban to them.
Yeah, that's an important one. It's funny when you see the one about complaining about the hard thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I get it because they were punks in general, but I mean, we see plenty of evidence of perfectly righteous people still complaining
about
stressing about how hard stuff is. I mean, you've got You watch the Joseph Smith movie, and Emma's like, "How much more do we have to endure?
Yeah,
What's going on with this?" So,
and then they wanted to give up after one try. Note that during that one try, a major leader of their city decided that he was going to kill them. Right?
yeah.
I mean, you know,
We could probably do a whole
tough
study
try.
about Laman and Lemuel. Were they really bad guys, or were they just put in a bad environment and misunderstood?
probably.
Is that what really was the root of things here? I think
And then written about by their brother, whom they tried to kill, and
Right?
didn't really like them very much.
the Book of Mormon's funny to me because I mean I'm a believer and I'm all about it, but there's a lot of ways you could read things in the Book of Mormon from a totally different perspective.
Yeah.
And like we'll get into it later in Alma, but we talked about this on the podcast a couple weeks ago, whether Korihor was actually a religious freedom fighter suffering in an intolerant theocracy, like stuff like that. So
I'll be sure to tune in for that.
yeah, it's fun stuff. So that's basically the gist of that lesson. And of course, afterwards they go back to Jerusalem for Ishmael and his family.
Without complaint to get the women.
Of course. Incidentally, if you've ever seen the Book of Mormon movie, anybody, that low-budget, terrible thing that came out years ago?
Clips, didn't see the whole thing.
The best part is when they have the not in the scriptures wedding of, the Nephi boys and the Ishmaelite daughters.
And they all dance to "We Are
This,
Family."
it's this weird, like they have a tent and they're all dancing, and it's. I'm just going to leave the lesson at that. Never watch that movie. It's the worst thing you'll ever see in your life.
Amen.
So, anyways, great things about this lesson here. Read up on your First Nephi chapters 1 through 7, and that'll be lesson 1, all things according to his will. And so we thank you for tuning in. Once again, of course, find us at thisweekinmormons.com. Send us an email, contact@thisweekinmormons.com. Facebook.com/thisweekinmormons, and @TheRealTwim on Twitter. And this has been Sunday School Bonanza. Bill, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Well, we look forward to having you again in the future, and we'll talk to you all later. Bye-bye.